Recently, I finished rewatching Snow White with the Red Hair, and I cannot believe that it has been a decade since this show was last airing and since I first watched this series. And no, I wasn't planning to do 2 videos in a row talking about shows from a decade ago, but here we are. I am sorry for everyone who feels a little bit older because of that, but trust me, I do too. And it really has been hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that it's been 10 years since I've seen this series. I mean, I remember when Funimation was dropping batches of like 3 or 4 episodes dubbed for season 1 throughout January 2016. I think it started like January 4th. And like over the next few weeks after that, they did like 3 or 4 episodes each to get season 1 dubbed so that they could start doing the broadcast dub, anybody remember that term, for season 2, which was starting in winter of 2016. I think that started at like the end of January as far as the dub is concerned. The reason why they did that is because they did not do a broadcast dub for season 1 back in summer of 2015. I don't remember if there was ever given a reason why, but that particular season, I remember Funimation only did like 3 broadcast dubs, despite the fact that there were a lot of notable shows, at least contextually, in summer 2015. That's not really relevant for anything, it's just me remembering how things were back then. Watching my interest in this series get deeper with each batch, I don't know, it's something I reflect on very warmly. And then I remember that it was a decade ago and I don't feel so warm anymore, but you know, that's how it goes. So what I've learned rewatching this series now is just how much I really enjoy the setting. It would have been very easy to make this like a standard fantasy show with magic and monsters and stuff like that. I mean, this is, to some extent supposed to be about Snow White, Shirayuki, our main character. Granted, of course, after you get out of the first episode, there's really not that much Snow White to this. They really get all of the references out of the way from the start before they go and tell their own story. Despite the original Snow White obviously involving magic, this show does not. It decides to keep things grounded in what is basically a realistic world. Obviously, it's in a different world from our own with different countries and presumably different geography, but it doesn't feel that dissimilar from some sort of medieval time period. And this helps to make the show feel familiar, but distinctly different. It feels lived in and engrossing, all on the merits of its world building and, of course, its characters. I, of course, wish we had more time to explore that world building further, but, we have 2 seasons and that is better than nothing. On the characters front, I absolutely adore Shirayuki. I adored her from the moment I first saw her, and if anything, that has only been amplified after this rewatch. The show never portrays her as perfect or infallible, like it very easily could have, and that makes her all the more captivating as a result. She definitely has her flaws. She takes on more than she should. She overworks herself. She doesn't always think things through all the way before she takes action. And because of that, she does sometimes let her emotions get the better of her at times. But at the same time, she is insightful, she's clever, she is determined to evolve. She has been one of my favorite female anime characters ever since I first saw her. That adoration for her has only gotten deeper now. But she's not the only relevant character in this series. In fact, I think the show has a very strong cast. Zen gets a lot of backstory, and we see the struggles that he has faced just by being the second prince of Clariness, and how that has affected his upbringing, his ability to form bonds with other people, and of course, how that is impacting his love for Shirayuki and their ability to be together. But through that backstory, we also see how he became the person he is, why he has the ideals he does, and why he wants to promote those ideals. I really appreciate that this show gave him as much depth as it did, and made sure that his romance with Shirayuki felt handled with care. It at no point feels unjustified. They do have chemistry from the get-go, but it's through their shared experiences and their perspectives that their romance becomes strong. Mitsuhide gets a fair amount of character focus as well, and more than I had originally recalled from when I first watched the show. Unfortunately, Kiki, the other attendant, kind of gets the short end of the stick as far as character focus, but my understanding is that she does get a lot more story focus in the source material beyond what the anime covered. So if we ever do somehow get a 3rd season, I would expect to see more for her. And it's not that she doesn't get anything. We get a little bit in the OVA, which never got licensed or dubbed, unfortunately, but the one that came out in between season 1 and season 2, and we do get a little bit more towards the end of season 2. So there's still something for her. And then, of course, you have the two characters that probably get the most development out of the whole cast, being Raj and Obi. Raj, of course, is the guy who wants to turn Shirayuki into his concubine, and then when she runs away from that, decides, well, I'll just poison her with some apples. He's a spoiled prince who is perfectly willing to kidnap and poison, and I would not blame people for seeing how he is at the beginning of the show and feeling like he is irredeemable. And the show easily could have left it at that, because Raj only shows up for a couple more episodes in season 1 where he's more afraid of interacting with Shirayuki and Zen than anything else. And that easily could have been the end of Raj, where he's put in his place, he's done, he doesn't want anything to do with Shirayuki at that point, and we never see him again. But of course, we have to address that he is the prince, the eventual ruler of Shirayuki's home. And because of that, season 2 spends a lot of time dealing with Raj, because Shirayuki is sent to effectively be an envoy to Tanbaroon, and that kickstarts the entire plot of season 2. The show didn't necessarily have to do that, but I appreciate that it did, because as the show works towards redeeming Raj and trying to make him a better person, it never absolves him entirely of what he did. It is always very clear that what Raj did was wrong, that he was genuinely a bad person, and it does make his actual genuine attempts to become a better human being and a better prince to his people throughout season 2 feel all the more real and interesting. The show never justifies or excuses what he did to Shirayuki, but the two ultimately try to build a better relationship, to actually try and become friends. And ultimately it is very clear by the end of the show that Raj is not the same person he was. He tries to take his position seriously, is actually trying to learn more about his country, try to eventually become a better ruler, and it's all because of his interactions with Shirayuki. He clearly is not happy at who he was and makes an honest effort to change. And by the end, he is definitely on the road to doing that. So even though him and Shirayuki do become actual friends by the end, and Shirayuki even gets a title out of it, Raj's actions at the beginning are not washed away, which I think makes his decision to change, to learn more about his country, to endeavor to be better, all the more notable. And then you have Obi, who effectively starts out just being a hired goon. He even shoots an arrow at Shirayuki to try and scare her away. But at the end, he is deeply loyal to Zen. And despite clearly having some sort of affection for Shirayuki, though I highly doubt he would ever act on it, Obi may have feelings for Shirayuki, but his feelings for his master, for Zen, are much stronger. However much he may like Shirayuki, his loyalty to Zen outweighs all of it. And you see this guy who, again, just effectively a vagabond, a hired goon who went from place to place, actually find a place to settle down, find a purpose in his life, find a place to belong. It is a very well done character arc for him. It also makes the episode towards the end of season 2, where we learn a little bit more about his past, all the more important, because we get a glimpse of just how much his demeanor and his life have changed just by knowing Zen and Shirayuki and the others. Season 1 of the show, of course, is generally a lot more episodic. We do get some two-parters towards the middle and end with Raj's visit to Clariness and the backstory episodes with Zen and Mitsuhide, and they do a good job of setting up a lot of plot points for Season 2. And of course, building on the central romance. There are a lot of little things in Season 1 that come back into relevance in Season 2 that you may not initially expect on your first watch through. And then Season 2, of course, is much more plot-focused because we have everything with Shirayuki visiting Tanbaroon and the question about who exactly is looking for her. Is she going to get kidnapped? Who are these people that are after her? And it makes for much more of a glued to your screen kind of watching experience. That's not to say that that is necessarily better or worse than the watching experience for Season 1. It just is notably different. I think both seasons do their jobs effectively and well, and help to complement each other's strengths for the sake of a stronger whole. I just wish there was more. There's so much more that could be explored with these characters and this world. There are even some tidbits hinted at towards the end of Season 2. And I'll try not to go into specifics for people who haven't watched the show, but there's a scene towards the end where Zen and his brother Izana are talking about some sort of issue up north. What does that mean? What is the issue? What exactly is going on? Like, it very clearly is like alluding to something big happening, and we don't really have the context for what it means. What comes next for Zen and Shirayuki? What obstacles are they going to face in their romance? Is Shirayuki's title going to change things? Will they actually be able to openly be together? There's so much more that can be explored, and I cannot believe that in 10 years we still have not gotten a third season. I don't know if we ever will. Of course, in this day and age where shows can get continuations after 15 years, it certainly is not impossible to see more of this series at some point, and rewatching the show now has only made me want that third season even more. So I'm glad that I did finally sit down and watch through it all again, because it has only reinforced my love for this show, as well as its cast. So if you've heard of this show and were maybe on the fence about checking it out, or aren't really sure if it's for you, I think this show offers a lot for many people. Whether it be the setting, the world building, the characters and their development, the way it weaves certain plot points throughout its run, it's a very well done show, and definitely an all-time favorite of mine. It's just very hard to believe it's been a decade since I first saw it, and a decade since there's been new content for it. Hopefully we'll actually get to see that third season one day, and hopefully it won't take another decade before that happens. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and until next time, take care everyone. Look forward to the next video.